Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Iran has confirmed 59 more COVID-19 related fatalities over the past 24 hours, bringing the nationwide death toll to over 7,300. In Russia, over 9,400 people tested positive for the virus, with 139 more deaths, pushing the total to almost 3,400. The total number of cases in Russia has reached almost 336,000. On Friday, President Vladimir Putin said the situation in the country was stabilizing, but the road to recovery is not as stable as he wished. Iran is moving ahead with plans to reopen religious and cultural sites as well as businesses. In a statement on state television, President Hassan Rouhani said museums and historical sites will be allowed to welcome visitors again on Sunday to coincide with Eid al-Fitr celebrations. Over 1,200 more people have died in the US, raising the total to nearly 96,000. Worldwide, the death toll crossed 338,000 with over 5.2 million cases of infection. Pakistan's COVID-19 death toll has crossed 1,100 after 34 died in the last 24 hours. The health ministry reported 1,743 infection cases overnight, bringing the tally to over 52,000. The health ministry said 16,635 patients of coronavirus have recovered so far, while 412 remain critical. The ministry said over 460,000 tests have been conducted countrywide, with 14,705 taken since yesterday. Meanwhile, health advisor Dr. Zafar Mirza has warned the situation can worsen if people do not follow standard operating procedures. Pakistan has once again condemned Indian attempts to change the demography of occupied Kashmir using its new domicile law. During a telephonic conversation with the OIC Secretary General, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said India's move is in violation of the UN Security Council resolutions and the 4th Geneva Convention. Qureshi briefed Secretary General Yusuf bin Ahmed Al Uthaymeen on the situation in the occupied valley. He said Pakistan is concerned over growing human rights violations and an increase in extrajudicial killings of Kashmiris. Foreign Minister said India might stage a false flag operation to divert global attention. Qureshi said UNO, OIC and international observers must be allowed to assess the situation in occupied Kashmir. The death toll from the plane crash in Pakistan has reached 97, while 2 passengers have survived. Yesterday, a Pakistan International Airlines plane with 99 people on board crashed in the coastal city of Karachi. The Provincial Health Ministry says 19 victims have been identified so far. The ministry said a sample collection unit has been set up in Karachi to conduct DNA tests. Earlier, Aviation Minister Ghulam Sarwar Khan said compensation will be given for all the damaged buildings. In a press conference, the minister said a thorough inquiry into the tragic incident will take place. He said a preliminary inquiry will be completed in 3 months. Yesterday, PIA CEO Arshad Malik said the crashed Airbus jet had been cleared as technically fit for flying. Meanwhile, a PIA spokesperson said the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder have been recovered from the crash site. Afghanistan's National Security Council says the Taliban have killed 146 civilians during the holy month of Ramadan. In a tweet, spokesperson Javed Faisal said victims included women and children from 30 districts of the country. Faisal said 430 other civilians have been wounded in the countrywide attacks by the fighters. Responding to the claim, Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid said the accusations are completely baseless. The spokesperson said the group has not bombed any mosque, home or clinic in the country. Zabiullah said the Afghan nation is a witness that all such crimes have been perpetrated by Afghan enemy. He said the Taliban have only countered and defeated the Afghan troops. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani has warned the US of retaliatory measures if it caused problems for tankers carrying Iranian fuel to Venezuela. Speaking to Qatar's Amir over the phone, Rouhani said Tehran has the legitimate right to defend its sovereignty and to serve its national interests. He said Iran will never initiate a conflict. Rouhani hoped that the Americans will not commit an error. According to both the governments, Iran is supplying about 1.53 million barrels of gasoline and alkylate to Venezuela. The shipments have caused a diplomatic standoff between Tehran and Caracas and Washington, as both the nations are under U.S. sanctions. The U.S. recently beefed up its naval presence in the Caribbean. Iran says its defense industry is focused on breaking sanctions and upgrading its deterrent power as it did over the past 40 years. In a statement, the Defense Ministry said upgrading deterrent power is of significant importance for achieving the goals of Islam. It said the defeat of invaders in the field of soft war and arbitrary sanctions requires vigilance, awakening, and understanding the different plots. The statement said as a new chapter began in the fight for the liberation of Palestine, the ministry is ready to defend this front with all its might. It said Iran will not talk to an irrational and coercive enemy except with authority and from a position of power. A new UN report says dozens of Iraqi protesters have been disappeared during 5 months of anti-establishment demonstrations. The report, published by the UN Assistance Mission for Iraq, said protesters, many of whom were abducted, were ill-treated and tortured. It said all of those targeted had participated in protests or provided support to the demonstrators, demanding an overhaul of Iraq's political system. The UNAMI based its finding on accounts of incidents that took place between October the 1st, 2019 and March the 21st, 2020. It was able to verify the disappearance of around 123 people. Of these, it confirmed the whereabouts of 98 people, but said 25 remain missing. Since the protests erupted in October last year, the UN has verified 490 deaths with 7,800 wounded in clashes with the security forces. The UN-backed Libyan army says Khalifa Haftar's militia is using withdrawal tactics of ISIS in the south of the capital Tripoli. In a statement, the military said rebel forces are trapping mines in residential areas as they leave. The military said some mines are trapped to explode as the vehicle passes, while others when someone goes near it. The development comes as internationally recognized Commander of the National Accord said it has recaptured parts of southern Tripoli from Haftar's forces. It said the Libyan army has advanced into several districts and overran a military camp. The Libyan National Army of Haftar said it had already pulled out of those areas as humanitarian gesture for Ramadan. Russia says it intends to implement the provisions of Open Skies Treaty despite the unilateral withdrawal of the US from the accord. Speaking to media, the Russian mission to NATO said it is ready for further dialogue with the US in the interests of the European and the international security. The mission said all parties to the treaty will have to clearly define their positions. Earlier, Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said the US provided no facts to back up its allegations that Russia has repeatedly violated the treaty. He said Washington's claims are totally unfounded. Meanwhile, 10 European nations expressed regret over the US decision to exit the treaty, which allows unarmed surveillance flights over the member countries. In Russia, 3 people have been killed in a fire that broke out in the hospital in the central Tatarstan region. In a statement, the emergency ministry said the fire erupted in a block for patients with blood vessel diseases. It said a total of 88 people, including patients and personnel, have been evacuated from the building. The ministry said short circuit is believed to be the cause of the fire, and a case was launched after the incident. In the US, an enormous fire broke out at a San Francisco warehouse on Pier 45 at the city's iconic Fisherman's Wharf. Local media reported no injuries and said the area has been evacuated. Firefighters said that additional structures and the SS Jeremiah O'Brien ship were threatened. The ship is one of the 2 remaining fully functioning Liberty ships launched during World War II. Officials said the warehouse is a total loss, though a fireboat was able to save the O'Brien ship. They said it is unclear what ignited the flames. 8 inmates have been killed and another 8 hospitalized with injuries after clashes broke out at a prison in Mexico's central state of Jalisco. In a press conference, security officials said 3 prisoners were killed by firearms while 5 others died from beatings in Puente Grande complex. The jail authorities said the fight broke out as inmates participated in a sports activity. Officials said jail staff never lost control of the facility and they recovered 2 firearms and a homemade explosive device. They said 5 people have been detained for having a possible role in the confrontation. The jail authorities said they will probe whether any public officials were involved. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez says the country will reopen to international tourism under security measures from July. The country is emerging from one of Europe's strictest lockdowns implemented on 14th of March. Speaking in Madrid, Sanchez said the country receives over 80 million tourists every year and Spain needs safe tourism. He also gave a green light to the Spanish professional football league La Liga from 8th of June. Sanchez said the government plans to spend €3 billion a year to provide its poorest citizens with a minimum income. Spain is one of the worst affected countries by the coronavirus outbreak, with over 28,000 deaths and more than 200,000 cases. Welcome back. Over 2 million people have recovered after being infected with the COVID-19 virus worldwide. Johns Hopkins University's data shows over 350,000 people have recovered in the US, marking the highest number. Germany has reported nearly 160,000 recoveries, while in Spain, over 150,000 people have been cured. Italy, Russia, Turkey, Brazil, and Iran each reported over 100,000 recoveries. The rising number of recoveries have provided a ray of hope to people amid the crisis. The virus has spread to 188 countries and regions since it was first detected in China in December. A US study has revealed the plasma from people who recovered from COVID-19 show improved survival rates. The study detailed the preliminary outcomes of 39 patients hospitalized at the Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. Patients with severe COVID-19 given plasma were more likely to stabilize or need less oxygen support than other similar patients. The study said the number of patients was small, so the results cannot be interpreted as applying to those on mechanical ventilators. Researchers analyzed outcomes of 39 patients who received plasma transfusions compared to the outcomes for patients with carefully matched medical status. It said nearly 13% of plasma recipients died, while 72% were discharged alive. The US has called on the World Health Organization to start immediate work on investigating its handling of the response to the COVID-19. In a statement, Assistant Secretary for Health Admiral Brett Giroir said there is no time to waste and urged the agency to also probe into the source of the virus. He said the US lauds the call for an impartial, independent, and comprehensive review to be undertaken in consultation with the member states. Giroir referred to an EU resolution that was unanimously adopted by the WHO's annual ministerial assembly, calling for a thorough evaluation. He said the WHO assembly must address the outcome of the review process, including Taiwan's ability to participate as an observer. The UN says COVID-19 pandemic has increased cyber crimes as the world moves towards increased online collaboration. In an informal meeting of the UNSC Disarmament Chief, Izumi Nakamitsu said there has been a 600% increase in malicious emails during the crisis. Nakamitsu said the UN has received worrying reports of attacks against healthcare organizations and medical research facilities worldwide. She said growing digital dependency has increased the vulnerability to cyber attacks, and one such attack takes place every 39 seconds. The chief said nearly 90 countries are still only at the early stages of making commitments to cybersecurity. But she said the UN has made global progress to address the threats and will create a secure and functioning cyberspace. Muslims around the world prepare for Eid al-Fitr as they bid farewell to the fasting month of Ramadan. The traditional celebrations will be affected this year as nations around the world take measures to curb the coronavirus pandemic. Festivals and public celebrations on Eid have been banned in many Muslim countries. Eid prayers have also been cancelled in several countries amid the pandemic, including Oman and Egypt. Saudi Arabia's Grand Mufti has urged Muslims to pray at home instead of going to the mosque. Yemen's health ministry has asked the citizens to wear masks in public and not leave their homes unless absolutely necessary. Traditionally, people greet one another after Eid prayers and spend the day visiting relatives and accepting sweets as they move around from house to house. In Spain, several thousand followers of the far-right Vox party have gathered in Madrid and other cities to protest the government's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Addressing a rally, Vox leader Santiago Sylvester said they will ensure the government faces justice. He said the government of Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez is lying about the impact of health crisis and violating citizens' rights. Pascal said it is time to end the state of abuse and raise voice against unemployment and misery. He urged the people to protest in every regional capital as similar car processions took place in Seville and Barcelona, among others. Spain has registered nearly 30,000 deaths from COVID-19 and over 200,000 cases. In Germany, a church in capital Berlin has opened its doors to Muslim worshippers unable to fit into their mosque under new social distancing rules. The Dar es Salaam Mosque normally welcomes hundreds of Muslims to its Friday services, but could only accommodate 50 people this time under COVID-19 restrictions. More in this report.
Throughout the month of Ramadan, Muslims abstain from eating, drinking, and other desires from dawn to dusk. Families and friends gather to break their fast and attend communal prayers. But in Berlin, as in countries across the world, this year's celebrations have been affected. At such a time, Malta Lutheran Church stepped in to help by hosting Muslim prayers in Arabic and German.
It is a great signal and it brings joy amid Ramadan and joy amid this crisis. This pandemic has made us a community. Crises make people get together.
Places of worship reopened in Germany on May 4th after weeks of closures under the lockdown. But worshippers must maintain a minimum distance of 1.5 meters from one another. The church's pastor also took part in the service. Muslims noted the contrast of the church to the Islamic worship place but agreed that at the end it is also a house of God.
First, when you get into the church, was a strange feeling because of the music instrument and the photos. So it is something different from the mosque. But when you forget the small details, this is the house of the God, and at the end, so they are all the same.
This year, Muslims around the world are being urged to celebrate Eid al-Fitr at home as the holy month of Ramadan comes to an end.
In India, millions of migrant workers continue to face hunger, hardships and road accidents in their journey back home. Prime Minister Narendra Modi imposed a sudden lockdown in March, causing mayhem for labourers. In recent incidents, hundreds of workers crossed Yamuna River on foot from Haryana to go home in Bihar. Talking to media, the migrants said they have been crossing the river at night to avoid the daytime heat. The workers said they don't have money and police thrashed them on the road, which is why they are crossing the river at night. Meanwhile, 35 migrants were injured after the bus they were travelling in overturned in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh. Thousands have protested in the Indian city of Kolkata against New Delhi's slow response to power cuts and flooding after a devastating super cyclone. Authorities have been struggling with the aftermath of Cyclone Amphan while also dealing with the challenges of the coronavirus outbreak. The death toll in India and Bangladesh from Cyclone Amphan's rampage along the Bay of Bengal rose to 112. Kolkata residents vented their anger for a second day, demanding faster action to get the city of 15 million people working again. Police said over 5,000 people took part in different demonstrations across the city. Meanwhile, Pakistan has expressed grief over the loss of life and property caused by the cyclone. The Foreign Office said the government and the people of Pakistan are saddened over the deaths in both the countries and extended condolences to the families of victims. British authorities have charged 4 men and a woman with the murder of Aya Hashim, a Muslim woman shot dead in Blackburn last week. 19-year-old Lebanese British Muslim was shot dead in a drive-by shooting as she was out for grocery shopping. In a statement, police said 2 of the suspects, Firoz Suleiman and Abu Bakr Satya, will appear in court today. It said the pair will also be charged with attempting to murder a man who was not the intended target in the incident. The force later said Othman Satya, Judy Chapman and Kashim Manzoor have also been charged with murder and attempted murder. Lancashire police said 2 shots were fired in the incident, as first hit a building and the second killed Aya. Malta has rescued a group of 140 migrants from a sinking dinghy but refused to bring them to land. Authorities are holding the migrants on a chartered tourist boat just outside the country's territorial waters. The rescue was conducted by a Maltese patrol boat after the dinghy drifted into a search and rescue region. The rescued group joined the tourist boats, which already hold 160 migrants rescued 2 weeks ago. The government says it will not allow any migrants in Malta, as other EU nations have not kept promises to take refugees already brought to the island. But it said a group of 19 people, including children and pregnant women, was brought to Malta for humanitarian reasons. Wikipedia is instituting a new code of conduct to battle what the firm called toxic behavior by some volunteers. The Wikimedia Foundation, the organization that runs the site, voted on new measures that will be finalized by the end of the year. In a statement, Wikimedia's board of trustees said maintaining civility was a core value of the organization. Chief Executive Catherine Mayer said Wikimedia must work together to create a safe, inclusive culture where everyone feels welcome. The Foundation's binding code of conduct for members will include banning or limiting access if volunteers violate the terms. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Muslims everywhere are observing a subdued Eid al-Fitr amid the COVID-19 pandemic. In Palestine, the government has been forced to expand virus-related restrictions during the holidays. More in this report.
2020 has been a tough year for everyone so far, but particularly Palestinians. Over the past few months, they've had to deal with increased Israeli aggression, including a worsening blockade, more and more settlers occupying their lands, and targeting by the IDF. Now Eid has come, and there aren't any shoppers in local markets because of the coronavirus.
Bethlehem used to be overcrowded during this time. People would come from Hebron, Abu Dis, Al-Aziriya and Jericho. You couldn't walk in the street on normal days. But today you can see in Bethlehem there isn't a lot of people. The shops are open but no buyers. The economic situation for the people has collapsed and is completely destroyed.
What's worse is that people can't even meet their relatives on Eid. But this can't be done under the government's new COVID-19 related restrictions.
There is no cheer for the Eid. As you can see, the market is empty. There is no one. In the past, it used to be overcrowded, but now there is no one. We used to not be able to move because of the booths, but now we are moving freely. I thought I would find 20 people waiting in line. I arrived and there was no one here.
Many Palestinians are unhappy about the blanket lockdown. They say the government's measures are causing more problems than the pandemic.
We should change the atmosphere. We are in a prison anyway. Why to have another prison? No, I will go out and will enjoy whether there is corona or not. We want to celebrate Eid, enjoy and work.
According to official figures, there are 398 confirmed COVID-19 cases in Palestine, with 2 deaths recorded so far.
Spanish street artist Sylvester Santiago has started painting on windows to maintain his creativity alive during the lockdown in Madrid. More in this report.
The Spaniard's art includes Magritte-inspired raining men and different types of cutouts glued on windows. Santiago, who is also known as Pijak, encouraged his followers through social media to create their own art. The artist says he was excited when he started receiving hundreds of works from people. The original oil painting by Belgian surrealist René Magritte depicts identical raining men in bowler hats. But Pijak instead painted raining men in gas masks in reference to the coronavirus outbreak.
Another weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.